They didn't even wait for the casserole lids to stop clanking. We were in the church basement, the one with buzzing fluorescent lights that tint everyone the same tired color, and linoleum that never quite looks clean no matter how many times you mop it. Someone pressed a paper plate into my hands and said, "Eat something, Rachel." I nodded like a polite guest at my own boy's goodbye. Ham rolls, funeral potatoes, 3 different green bean casseroles fighting for space next to a sweating bowl of macaroni salad. It smelled like mercy warmed over. I was deciding between deviled eggs and the safer-looking potato salad when the heels started. You know that sound on tile click-click, like a metronome for gossip? Vanessa. Black blazer hair too glossy for daytime lipstick, the shade of a bad idea. She didn't look at the food or the sympathy cards or the framed photo of my son propped by the coffee urn with a blue ribbon around it like the church committee had decided to present an award for dying. She beelined to the microphone. "Thank you for gathering in honor of my husband," she said, clear, bright, rehearsed. "Noah Morrow." Husband. She unrolled that word like a credential. 12 years gone like morning fog, and there she stood under a wooden cross, ready to claim a story she hadn't lived. Forks froze mid-air. Miss Carroll, the choir lead with posture like piano wire, set down her lemon bars and watched without blinking. I didn't say a word. 30 years of second grade taught me silence can do more work than shouting. Vanessa smiled for the room. "I'll be handling Noah's estate," she continued. "If you have questions about the memorial fund, you can direct them to me." She tapped the mic so it thumped the cheap speakers, making sure even the folks pretending not to listen felt it in their ribs. I set my plate down next to the Mayo Baptist lady's famous Jell-O mold, like I was saving a seat for decency. I wasn't going to start a fight in a church basement, but I wasn't handing my son's life to the woman who walked out the minute things stopped being photogenic. What nobody knew, not Pastor Jim, not the women in floral aprons, was that I had a small safety deposit key taped behind Noah's 8th grade baseball photo in my purse. 402 stamped in block numbers. He'd left it on my kitchen counter 2 months back with a note that said, "In case Mom." He didn't say in case of what. He didn't have to. I could feel its outline through the fabric, warm as a pulse. Rachel, Pastor Jim's voice came at my shoulder. He wasn't asking me to speak. He was asking me not to. "I know," I said, and I didn't. Not yet. Vanessa kept going. "Noah and I had our differences," she said, with a little lift to her chin like their marriage had been a tasteful disagreement over throw pillows. "But he always told me I understood him best. That's why he wanted me to steward what he left." Steward. She always loved dressing a want in church clothes. That's when I heard it, a small sound most people would miss. The soft shiver of a cable tugged under a folding table. I glanced to the back. Parker, the teenager who runs sound on Sundays, had wormed himself halfway under the dessert spread like a Navy SEAL under enemy fire. He looked up, caught my eye, and I gave him the smallest nod I've ever given. He pulled. The mic died with a long sigh. The room answered with its breathing. Someone coughed. Someone else clapped once, just a single startled bird of a sound, then grabbed a napkin, embarrassed by the truth of it. Vanessa smacked the mic with 2 fingers. Nothing. For the first time, she looked at me like I'd moved her hand off a platter. "Rachel," she said, "sugar cracking to salt, we can do this the right way, or we can do it the hard way." I took a breath that tasted like gravel. "We'll do it the documented way," I said. I didn't raise my voice. When you've kept 27-year-olds from stapling each other for 3 decades, you learn tone beats volume every day of the week. Miss Carroll slid to my side so fast it made me blink. She's small, but she has that old farm strength, makes you believe she could lift an engine block if you dared her. "Potlucks for comfort, not announcements," she told Vanessa, voice steady as a tuning fork. "Save the legal talk for an office dear." That Midwestern dear means anything but tenderness. Vanessa's smile shrank into a line. "I'm simply clarifying roles." I looked at Noah's picture by the coffee urn. 13 in that frame cap, a little too big, eyes soft smile like he knew the punchline and was deciding if you'd earned it. That was the year his science fair volcano really exploded pancake batter everywhere, and he laughed with his whole chest. The janitor laughed too, and I drove home with a poster board that smelled like cafeteria. I remember thinking, if he can keep laughing like that, maybe the world can't do too much damage. I was wrong about the world, but I wasn't wrong about this love takes attendance. Absence gets graded. Vanessa, I said, and felt the room lean toward the sound. You want to talk, call my attorney. For now, let folks eat. She opened her mouth. Parker. God bless him, cut the house speakers altogether. The room returned to ordinary noises, forks, whispers, coffee dripping into the urn. The performance fell away, and people came back to themselves. Right then, something shifted. Grief is heavy. It slows your thinking. But hearing her claim what wasn't hers in a room meant for Mercy woke up a part of me I'd left sleeping since I fought the school board for our library budget. It felt like sliding into an old boot. Stiff at first, still fit. I didn't make a speech. I handed my plate to Mr. Duffy, my neighbor, since the summer a tornado stole half his roof and none of his grammar. You eat, I told him. I'll be right back. I walked past the bulletin board Christmas pageant photos, softball sign-ups down the short hall to the storage closet that smells like bleach and retirement. I closed the door and rested my forehead on a cool metal shelf. I took Noah's photo out of my purse, peeled back the tape. The key was there, 402 stamped sharp. I held it till it warmed to my palm. I know a stage storm from real weather. This was weather. A slow front rolling in. You don't stand in your yard and yell at clouds. You check the sump pump and make sure it still runs. 3 soft knocks. Pastor Jim again. You all right? Yes, I said. Are you? He exhaled through his nose. I don't love microphones at funerals. Me neither. He didn't ask what was in my hand. He's good, like that knows which questions are prayers and which are traps. If you need a room later, he said the upstairs library has a door that locks. Thank you. Back in the hall, the buffet line had found safer conversations. Football, weather. Whether the peach cobbler used canned or backyard fruit. Miss Carroll caught my eye and slid a foil-covered dish into my arms like a sacrament. Take this home, she said. You won't want to cook. I nodded. Vanessa had retreated to a corner whispering with a man in an earnest suit I didn't recognize. He clutched a blue folder, the exact color of denial. I ignored them both. That's a trick you learn when you're done being managed. Stop performing your listening. It spooks the right people. Parker crept over Cheek's pink hair like he cut it himself in a bathroom mirror. Mrs. Morrow, he whispered. I'm sorry, the cable's been loose. I put a hand on his shoulder. Best loose cable I've seen all week, honey. He grinned quick and crooked. Principal says I'm not supposed to touch the board during events. Principal's not here, I said, but I am. Maybe that sounds small to you, one kid pulling a plug, while a room pretends to breathe normal. But around here, big things start small. A rumor is just a little story people feed like a stray cat until it's bold enough to scratch. Truth can be small too, like a key taped behind a photo until the day you need it. I left before coffee. Down the steps past the rack of winter coats that smells like a thrift store in February, out into January air that stung my lungs. My old Ford started on the second try, polite as ever. I set the foil dish on the passenger seat, and Lord forgive me, set my purse on top so the gravy wouldn't leak, and ruin the only bag I own that lets me remember I still know how to be a woman in public. At the first red light, my eyes went to the bank on the corner. The brass clock's always 4 minutes fast. The manager used to sit in my homeroom reading group. His mama wrote thank yous on scented paper. I know their vault. I know their tellers. Somewhere back there sits box 402 behind smiling carpet and polite conversation. I went home instead. My house isn't much from the street. White paint that needs another coat, a porch with a tired slant, a wind chime my sister mailed that refuses to pick a key. But it's mine. The front door stuck the way it does when it's cold. I used my hip to love it open. Inside smelled like lemon oil and overdue library books. I set the casserole down, set the key on the kitchen table, poured coffee. It tasted like every morning I got up before dawn to grade spelling tests. My hand shook once, then it didn't. On the fridge, held by a magnet shaped like a cow in a chef's hat, hangs a recipe card in my mother's hand. Chicken and noodles, don't skip the pepper. She used to say, "We don't bluff, we document. About everything. School supplies, insurance, men." After Noah's father left, I never found a man who wasn't allergic to documentation. People say grief makes you weak. Not true. It makes you precise. You start cutting anything that doesn't help you breathe. My phone buzzed. Miss Carol. No punctuation always. We love you. The town loves you. Do not let her steal your words. I put the phone face down. By dusk, the day had wiped off its makeup. Streetlights blinked on. Somewhere down the block, a kid dribbled a basketball against a garage door. Thump, 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 like a heart refusing to forget its job. I slid the key into a little tin where I keep broken earrings and extra stamps, and wrote 3 names on the back of an envelope Priya Noah's partner from the early days. Miguel, the notary who hates sloppy. Daniel, the night nurse who never left shadows unexplained. I didn't know the whole war yet. I just knew the first position, the ground of my own kitchen. Maybe that's how real revolutions begin, not with a banner on the courthouse steps, but with a woman standing at her table, taking inventory of her truth. On the porch, the wind chime finally caught a breeze and tried to be in tune. I flipped off the kitchen light and watched my reflection slip out of the window. In the morning, I'd go to the bank. I'd open a box I never wanted to need. Ask for a quiet room with a door that locks. Whatever waited inside papers, a letter, a ledger of what mattered to my boy, I'd read it slow. Vanessa thinks power is volume. That's her mistake. Around here, we know better. Years back, a teacher stood at the front of a classroom and never raised her voice. Kids got quiet because they wanted to catch the thing she wasn't giving away. That teacher was me. And I'm not done teaching. Not yet. Morning came gray and square like a cinder block. The kind of January light that makes the whole town look like it needs sleep. I put on my black coat, the one with a missing button inside the hem that only I know about, and slid the little tin off the counter. Box 402's key clicked against my ring like it had something to say. The bank sits on Main, where it always has pretending to be a courthouse with its brass clock 4 minutes fast. I parked by the meter with the flaking numbers and walked past the window display wheat sheaves in a glass cylinder, a fake bird perched like money knows how to sing. Inside the carpet, tried to swallow my shoes, and the teller I didn't recognize smiled the neutral smile they teach in training. Then I heard my name said the way only former students say it, soft and almost proud. Mrs. Morrow West Boone, now wearing a tie that made him look like he came with the building. He used to sit in my homeroom reading group and mispronounce chrysanthemum so badly the whole table giggled themselves red. "We can put you in a private room," he said, already coming around the counter. "Upstairs," I said. "If it's free." "It is for you." He said it like a promise. I followed him past a framed poster about fraud awareness and another about saving for college, and I didn't let my face move. The private room was small table, 2 chairs, a little lamp shaped like it wanted to be a lighthouse when it grew up. A vault attendant brought the gray metal box and set it down like they were laying a baby in a bassinet. Wes stepped back. "I can leave you to it." "Stay," I said, surprising us both. "I'll need the copier." He nodded once and took the chair by the wall, hands flat the way people sit when they remember they used to call you ma'am. Box 402 opened with the same grim dignity as every truth I've ever had to face, slow, metallic, inevitable. Inside, no stacks of cash, no jewelry. A small envelope with my name in Noah's handwriting, the kind he used when he wanted me to actually read the note. 2 documents in plastic sleeves, a notarized copy of his new will, and a beneficiary update for the life insurance dated stamped, not sloppy, and a flash drive. Silver, unassuming, the kind you'd lose if you blinked. I didn't open the envelope. Not yet. You learn after certain kinds of losses that you only get firsts once the first time you hear their voice after they're gone, the first time you come across a shirt that still remembers their shape. Firsts aren't for fluorescent rooms. I slid the legal papers across to Wes. I'll need copies. Certified if you can. He glanced at the dates and winced in a sympathetic way I didn't need or hate. We can certify the copies as true to the originals, he said, the way a man says, here's what I can honestly do. I'll get the notary. Get Miguel if he's in, I said. Wes grinned. Miguel don't take lunch until everything is straight. Some things in this town are clockwork. Miguel came in with his medal stamp like a sheriff wears a star. He didn't bother with small talk. He read, he matched, he nodded. You want 3 sets, he said. 1 for court, 1 for counsel, 1 for that tin you got at home. 4, I said. 1 for safekeeping at the church. He slid me a look over the top of his reader's respect, maybe a touch of amusement. 4 it is. While the copier hummed, I held the flash drive in my palm. It wasn't heavy, but it made my hand feel full. Wes pointed to the desktop computer in the corner. You can check it here if you want. I don't want, I said, and slipped it back into the envelope with my name. I knew where that belonged. I needed my kitchen table and a chair that remembered my weight and a light that didn't hum like a nerve. When we finished, Miguel stacked the copies square like a bricklayer. Vanessa came in early this morning. He said casual as weather. Asked about account holdings like she was ordering breakfast. I didn't blink. And bank law is bank law. We don't disclose without papers, and hers were aspirational. He stamped the last page with a small, satisfied thud. People think speed is power. Process is. I signed where he pointed, thanked him, thanked Wes. On my way out, I stopped at the fraud poster and read it end to end. Not because I needed to, because I like reading rules in the building where they were made. It reminds me who gets to hold the pen and who has to bring their own. Outside, the air bit the kind that makes your eyes water, so you blame the cold. I drove 2 blocks and parked in front of the diner with the neon coffee cup that's been buzzing since Reagan. Miss Carroll waved me into a booth like she was catching me falling. Well, she asked when I slid in. Paper, I said. The kind that keeps walls standing. I told her about the will, the beneficiary update, the copies, the unplayed flash drive. She listened like a choir director listens to a timid alto, leaning forward, willing the note to find itself. She poured me coffee from the communal pot that has fed every sad person in this county and said, You don't have to be loud, but you will have to be public. I know. The word tasted like aspirin. She posted this morning. Miss Carroll's mouth went tight. Cropped photo of him from '09 and a caption about justice, she said. Got shared fast. People who don't know a thing always know everything. I took a breath and counted to 5. We won't react, I said, hearing my mother in my own voice. We'll respond. Miss Carroll's eyes warmed. There's the teacher. She set a napkin on the table and drew 3 small boxes with a ballpoint she pulled from behind her ear. You need a plan the town can see. Not a fight, a plan. In the first box she wrote, Secure the estate. In the second, Gather evidence. In the third, Set the story straight. Pastor can help with the first, she said. Ruth Levin can help with the second. She tapped the third box with her nail. The third needs a room and an audience. City Hall's auditorium is free if you ask Kendra at the clerk's office. She's my niece. She still owes me for prom hair. I smiled, for real, a tiny thing. Prom hair is a binding contract. We finished our coffee without saying much. That's how you know the person across from you is safe. Silence feels like a porch swing, not a threat. I drove to Ruth Levin's office by the courthouse. She works out of a narrow Victorian with a ramp out front that makes every client feel expected instead of accommodated. Ruth is the kind of attorney who keeps her nails short and her questions shorter. "Tell me what you have," she said. I laid it all out, like a teacher at a parent conference: dates, signatures, the notarized. Will the beneficiary change a line about Vanessa's performance at the church basement, and the fact that she's already publicly claiming wife to anyone with a timeline and a thumb to share it? I didn't mention the envelope with my name or the flash drive. Not yet. Some firsts belong to nobody but the person they're for. Ruth listened without interrupting, which is how I knew she was better than good. When I finished, she drew her own 3 boxes on a legal pad. 1, emergency probate protection. I'll call Judge Benton's clerk. Given the size and the circumstances, we can get a temporary order to freeze movement until we clean the air. 2, assemble a record: notary logs, divorce decree, insurance change forms, any contemporaneous communications from Noah about intent. 3, controlled disclosure. Not social media. Real world. We'll put the facts in a room with light and let people see them. City Hall, I said. She nodded once. Clean. Neutral. If we can get the mayor to sit in the front row without speaking so much, the better. Miss Carroll's niece can reserve it. Good. Ruth capped her pen. Also, don't engage online. The internet turns grief into bait. I brought my own hooks, I said, and surprised myself. From Ruth's office, I drove to the tech incubator, where Priya now consults a few days a week. She met me by the vending machines and hugged me like she'd been practicing not to. Her eyes were tired, in that way people get when the world keeps taking and never leaves a thank you note. I filtered Noah's last 2 months of emails, she said, pressing a flash drive into my palm. Kept the ones about the scholarship and the will revisions. Also kept one that made me mad. Which one? She took a breath. 2 years ago, she messaged him after the IPO news hit the paper. Didn't ask about his health, asked if the shares were locked up. He replied once, "I'm not a headline for you to dip into." Then he blocked her. I let the anger pass through me like a storm through a screen door, loud then gone. "Thank you," I said. "We'll need your statement. Only if you're ready." She lifted her chin. I lived the ready part already. Miguel had already stamped the divorce decree copies by the time I swung back to the bank. He slid them across with the precision of a man who believes order is a kind of kindness. "Full waiver of future claims," he said, tapping the highlighted line. Her signature's sharp. People sign bolder when they think they're done with you. The hospital cafeteria is no place for elegance, but Daniel made it feel like a chapel anyway. He met me at a corner table, his scrubs clean and his posture wrecked from caring. "I can write it," he said before I asked. Dates, who visited, who didn't, what Noah said on the quiet nights. I'll keep it clinical so they can't say I'm dramatic. "Clinical is a kindness," I said. "Thank you." On the way home, I passed a bulletin board outside the grocery where folks post things they don't know how to carry: puppies, apartments, garage bands looking for drummers, lost wedding rings. Someone had tacked up a printout of Vanessa's post. Underneath, someone else had written with a Sharpie, "Who is this?" I didn't stop. I didn't tear it down. I don't fight wind with my hands. Back at my kitchen table, I spread everything out and made a timeline on butcher paper I keep for wrapping Christmas gifts. Dates on the left, documents in the middle, witnesses on the right. I wrote in block letters because that's what you do when you want your future self to read you clearly. At the top, I wrote the line my mother used to say: "We don't bluff. We document." I thought about the envelope again, about Noah's handwriting that always leaned a little optimistic. I put my fingers on the flap, and then I didn't open it. Instead, I slid it into the good drawer with the neat things, passports, the title to the house, the photo of my sister and me at the county fair eating corn dogs like we had all the time in the world. At dusk, Miss Carroll texted Kendra, says, "City Hall is ours Friday 10 a.m. She'll bring the key and pretend it's heavy." I smiled. I texted Ruth. She wrote back, "Motion filed. Expect temporary order by morning. Don't look online." I put my phone face down, the way you put a lid on a pot to keep it from boiling over. Then came a knock at the front door. Not a neighbor knock, a careful, guilt-adjacent tap. I opened it to find Parker on my porch in a hoodie with the school's faded cougar on it, hair sticking up like he'd argued with a pillow, and the pillow won. He held out his phone with both hands. "Mrs. Morrow, my mom says if adults are lying, you should bring receipts." He pressed play. It was audio from the church basement cleaner than I expected from a loose cable. You can hear Vanessa's voice bright as theater lights, and then you can hear it cut, and then you can hear my voice say, "We'll do it the documented way." You can hear the room exhale like it shared lungs. It wasn't dramatic, it was true, and it was ours. "Did you get permission to record?" I asked, because second grade never stops living in the back of your head. He shrugged. I hit memo when she said husband. Felt like somebody should remember right. I nodded. Somebody did. He looked like he wanted a gold star and a nap. I gave him both in the form of 2 oatmeal cookies wrapped in a paper towel, and the sentence, "You did good today, Parker." He took the cookies like a kid takes a medal, clutched them in his hoodie pocket, and bounded down the steps 2 at a time. After he left the house, felt different, not lighter, just aligned like a picture frame finally straight after months of being 1 degree off. I sat back down at the table and added a 4th box under Miss Carroll's napkin diagram. Receipts, underlined twice. Before bed, I practiced not looking at the internet. It's like walking past a barking dog you know will bite if you flinch. I washed the coffee cup. I folded the dish towel the way my mother taught me corners kissing. I turned off the porch light and stood in the dark, long enough for my eyes to adjust to the shape of my own living room. In the morning, we'd start putting the pieces where people could see them. Judge's order, copy stamped, statement signed, a room at City Hall with a microphone that would ironically be used properly. I didn't need a victory. I needed clarity. And that's the kind of justice you can build 1 paper, 1 name, 1 clean sentence at a time. Vanessa believes power is volume. She hasn't learned what our town knows by heart. Power is policy names on lines, times on clocks, doors that lock because someone thought to ask for a key. I brushed my hand over the envelope with my name and left it closed. Firsts belong to feelings. Tomorrow we deal in facts. And somewhere past the brass clock that's always 4 minutes fast, past the diner with the neon cup, and the patched-up booths, past the church basement that smelled like mercy and overcooked noodles. A room was waiting that would do what a good classroom always did for me, hold the truth still long enough for everyone to see it. Quiet fights aren't small, they're just civilized. And I was ready to be very, very civil. Friday morning, the town woke up earlier than usual. Not for the farmers' market because City Hall had its doors propped open, and folks were murmuring, "They're announcing Noah's scholarship fund." Kendra, Miss Carroll's niece, stood hugging a ring of keys like she was holding office itself. She whispered to me, "How hot do you want the mic?" I said loud enough to hear, not loud enough to perform. Ruth arrived at 9:20, sharp gray coat hair, pulled back eyes alert in that way that means someone already won 2 small skirmishes before breakfast. She set a neat stack on the table, like brickwork, the court's temporary order stamped in red, the divorce decree with the full waiver line, highlighted the life insurance beneficiary update, the submission timestamps, and sworn statements from Priya, Miguel, and Daniel. Behind it all, a brown envelope labeled presentation. "You ready?" Ruth asked. "I'm ready to be civil," I said. Winning or losing, that belongs to the truth. Around 9:40, the mayor slipped into the front row, shook a few hands, said nothing exactly as Ruth hoped. Pastor Jim stood by the door, greeting people with the kind of touch that lands like a hand on your shoulder. Miss Carroll did loops around the room, posting signs that said, "Please turn your phone horizontal," as if we were about to sing Handel. At 9:55, Vanessa arrived. Cream blazer. Sunglasses lifted and perched in her hair like a tiny crown. Beside her, a man in a navy suit with a law firm lapel pinned a new attorney by the look. They took the middle row dead center of the local camera guy's lens. I gave them a glance. Just one. Then I let it go. 1000. Kendra locked the last door. The whole building shifted into that stillness that says, if you're here, you're here. If you're not, you'll hear about it. Ruth stepped to the mic, no cheerleading, no theatrics. We're here to launch the Noah Morrow Scholarship, and since many have asked to clarify a few things being said incorrectly. She held up the court order. Per this court order entered this morning, all movement of assets is frozen pending proceedings. Any self-declared authority to control the estate has no effect. Court order rang like metal on metal, clean and final. People straightened in their chairs. I watched Vanessa's jaw go tight, chin tilt half an inch. Ruth tipped her chin at Parker, the kid who accidentally pulled the cable at church today, wearing a volunteer badge like armor. He dimmed the house lights, tapped a key. The screen behind us woke up. No theme music, no logo, no sizzle reel. Just Noah in the armchair by his window in a soft sweater, eyes ringed, but calm. The USB from box 402 finally chosen for the right room. My son, I heard myself say quiet enough, only I could hear it. Noah looked straight into the lens. His voice was rough but clear. If you're watching, I'm not here to explain in person. I don't want arguments. I want my intent to be heard correctly. He talked about the scholarship, about small towns with more bright kids than chances, about how my mother is the one person who didn't leave when things got ugly. He paused, measured like deciding how much to say. Some people were family on paper. But real family is the one who does the hard work without an audience. A chair creaked. Somebody shifted to hide their eyes. I didn't cry. I was busy hearing my mother. We don't bluff. We document. And the next part of that video was documentation in a voice. Noah glanced down at a page, then back up. I have updated my will. Updated my insurance. I choose my mother and no one else. Not out of spite, out of truth. If you left when I needed you, you don't come back to name what I leave. He didn't say Vanessa's name. He didn't have to. Parker let the footage run to the end, where Noah gave the half smile. Only I would recognize the mom. Don't worry. I planned for this smile. The screen went black. No applause, no murmurs, just silence in its pure form. Ruth returned to the mic. Now the documents. Up came the divorce decree. The full waiver of future rights line glowed yellow like a handbrake. Vanessa's signature sat tidy beneath it. Next slide, the beneficiary update for the life policy. My name, the date, the submission time, the receiving stamp. Then the revised will summary page. Each slide landed with Miguel's notary seal enlarged in the corner like a gavel tapping thud-thud. I looked at Vanessa. Her fingers had gone white around her handbag handle, but her face stayed set to professional composure. Her attorney leaned in to whisper, extending a blue sheet. Ruth paused half a beat, polite enough not to turn a person into furniture. We just received a response from the other side, Ruth said, voice level. They allege Ms. Rachel exerted undue influence on Noah. So these are the statements. The screen filled with excerpts. Daniel charted dates and visits, no appearance by Vanessa in the final week. Priya's email, I'm not a headline you can dip into. Time-stamped 6 months after the divorce. Each item landed like a brick placed square. Ruth finished. And to eliminate confusion, here's this morning's temporary order freeze in place. Claims that contradict the current record are denied. She set the hard copy on the lectern like a stone to break wind. That should have been enough. But a breaking point isn't about enough. It's about reversal. Parker, after a small nod from Ruth, rolled the church basement audio. Vanessa's voice rang from the speakers, every my husband. I'll be handling crystal clear, then click, then my voice. We'll do it the documented way. You could feel the whole building exhale with that click, like we all got reminded that not everything with a microphone is the truth. Vanessa shot to her feet. That is a privacy violation, she snapped. Ruth tilted her head. Public event, public room, church mic, live. The clip is not for humiliation, it's for accuracy. Vanessa's lawyer stood trying to grab the stage. My client is being defamed in her own community. We have evidence. Then please submit it to the court, Ruth said, clean as glass. Here we're informing the public about a scholarship and correcting false claims. I stepped to the microphone, not to argue, to name the first scholarship recipients. I read 5 names. Each name was a small story, a kid caring for a sick parent, and still at the top of math, a kid working nights at the gas station and up again for trade classes. I said just enough so the words belonged to them, not the noise. Then I said one short piece. Legacy is not a costume you can throw on when it suits you. It isn't for sale. It cannot be stolen. In this town, we measure legacy by who stayed. I stepped back. For a breath, it was church quiet. Then someone, I think Mr. Duffy, clapped twice, awkward and brave. The applause spread in short waves. No roar, no storm, just a shared pulse. Vanessa squared her shoulders, adjusted those sunglasses in her hair. She whispered to her lawyer. Together, they left. No door slam, no scene. Just the click of heels down City Hall's hallway, like a clock counting down to something theirs that was ending. When we adjourned, people gathered not to gossip, but to sign up on a board that read, Volunteer Mentoring, Funding, Reading Essays. The mayor shook my hand without grand words, only, the city is with you. Pastor Jim tapped my back like hitting the switch that dims the stage lights. Miss Carol pressed a hair clip into my palm in case the wind acts up when you're on the news. As the lobby thinned, Ruth pulled me aside. One more thing, she said, handing me a white envelope. 10 minutes before we started, we got an anonymous email with a screenshot Vanessa to a friend. I'm going back to take what should have been mine. If his mother wants a war, I'm ready. Ruth shrugged. We may not need it, but if they cry defamation, we call this pattern. I slid the envelope into my coat pocket and thought of the letter Noah left that I still hadn't opened. Strange, of all the cold, sharp papers today, the only thing that touched my ribs was the one I hadn't read. By early evening, the local paper posted the temporary order. Ruth had drafted a statement brief, not chest-thumping, the Noah Morrow. Scholarship is now accepting applications. Legal disputes will be handled in court. No names named. No credit claimed. Quarantine the feelings from the process. That night, I sat at my kitchen table. The USB rested beside sealed copies with stamps. I took Noah's envelope from the good drawer. This time, I opened it. 1 page blue ink, a little faded. Mom, if I go first, please don't let anyone put my name on what they never touched when it was hard. If they ask why I chose you, tell them because she didn't leave. If you need proof, play the USB. If you need calm, put it away and look at the roses on the porch. Both are right at the right time. N. I laughed in my throat, small, private, the kind of laugh only a kitchen and an old chair can hear. You did good, baby, I told the space with his face in it. My phone buzzed. Priya full video is up on the foundation site with a timestamp. I locked comments. Parker says audio's clean. Ruth. They just sent a settlement feeler. Reply written correspondence only. Miss Carol Kendra asks if you want City Hall again Monday, in case you want a parent-teacher with the local press. I answered each. Every reply felt like turning a screw, tightening the frame we'd built. Around 10, Vanessa's attorney called Ruth on speaker. My client's reputation has been damaged. If you don't pull the video, we'll sue. Ruth, calm as rain. The video is accurate. If you believe you have a right file, your motion. Court is where documents speak. He hesitated 1 beat. That beat sounded like a man realizing the door he's pounding on is locked from the other side. I hung up and topped off the mums I'd picked up yesterday. I didn't feel light. I felt level, like a wardrobe finally shimmed so it doesn't wobble. The fridge hummed its old cough. The wind banged the off-key chime. I thought about Monday local reporters, a few pointed questions, and me answering only what has paper behind it. Before bed, I opened the porch door. Cold air and a thin kind of gold in the sky that helps you remember your way home. I touched the doorframe and thought about what I'd said that morning. Legacy isn't a costume. I didn't regret it. I wasn't drunk on victory either. I just wanted to sleep a night where I didn't dream about microphones. Tomorrow the town would go on grocery runs, car washes, kids practicing jump shots in driveways. But one thing would not go back the story. We'd pulled it into the light set, a ruler to it, and everybody could see where they stood. That's the breaking point, not breaking me. Breaking the illusion. And once illusion breaks, truth doesn't need to yell, it just needs to stand. I turned off the light, left the USB on the table beside the open letter and the blue ink page. Tomorrow morning, Ruth and I would map the next filings. In the afternoon, I'd read scholarship applications. That night, I might plant 2 climbing roses, 1 deep red, 1 ivory each, a stake in the ground, truth and peace. Vanessa thinks power is how many people hear you talk. I know better power is how many people understand you without a speech, and today, in that room, they understood. By Saturday, the chatter felt different. Not louder, sharper like the town had switched from rumor to reading. The temporary order was up on the paper's website with a photo of City Hall that made the bricks look braver than they are. At the grocery, people didn't stop me to ask for details. They said things like, "We saw the paperwork, and good to have it clear." That word clear tasted better than victory. Ruth called before lunch. They filed an emergency motion to force the video down, she said, like she was telling me it might snow. Judge Benton wants written briefs by Tuesday, no hearing yet. Also, Vanessa's counsel threatened a defamation suit in a press email. We responded with 4 words, "Please proceed. Attach exhibits." Exhibits, I said, and glanced at the USB resting in a little porcelain dish beside my salt shaker. Like it was just another spice I could reach for when I needed strength. We spent the afternoon boring holes in the chaos so we could bolt everything to the wall. Ruth drafted declarations. Priya came by to sign hers and stayed long enough to help me proofread the foundation website. Daniel dropped a sealed envelope, his statement printed neat as a chart. No adjectives, all spine. Miguel texted a photo of his notary log with the caption, "Squared corners, squared story." By Sunday, the church sang like it remembered how. Pastor Jim didn't mention us from the pulpit, just preached a short sermon on truth being patient, documented, and stubborn. Half the church looked sideways at me and smiled the kind of smile you give a neighbor when you've watched her mow her own lawn after a storm. After the service, Miss Carroll corralled 2 high schoolers at the coffee urn and turned them into volunteer coordinators with nothing but a clipboard and her unblinking stare. "Applications open tomorrow," she told me. "Let's build a list of readers who know the difference between grammar and grit." Monday morning, Kendra unlocked City Hall again for a small press gaggle, local paper, radio, 2 TV crews who share a tripod and pretend they don't. We didn't do a podium. We didn't do a stage. We used a long table from the storage closet, the one with pen marks from a long-ago budget meeting, and put documents in stacks people could pick up like church bulletins. Ruth did the talking process, dates, names, seals. I said 30 seconds on the scholarship, who it's for, how to apply when we'd decide. A reporter tried to bait me. "Mrs. Morrow, do you have anything to say to Vanessa?" "Yes," I said. "I wish her peace, but the scholarship is what we're here for." That line made the evening news, not because it was clever, but because it refused to audition for a fight. The court moved quicker than any rumor. Tuesday afternoon, Judge Benton issued a short order request to take the video down, denied no showing of falsity, plenty of showing of authentication. He added a paragraph, "Only lawyers love the kind that says, 'Don't make me say this again.'" In the same breath, he set a schedule if anyone intended to contest the will file properly by Thursday, with supporting affidavits, or withdraw the noise. "Noise," Ruth repeated, pleased. "We'll deliver our binder at 9 a.m. Wednesday evening, the binder sat on my table like a cinder block in a 3-ring coat. Tabs, index, timeline. On the spine in a label I typed with my old teacher's laminator, Morrow Estate Record. I slid a second label, back-to-back foundation launch record. 2 stories, 1 book. If the house burned, I'd grab that binder, the letter from Noah, and the recipe card that says, "Don't skip the pepper." Thursday morning, the courthouse clock bonged 9, and Ruth walked in with the binder and a face that looked like she slept fine. At 10:12, the clerk stamped our receipt. At 11:04, an email arrived. Opposing counsel has withdrawn any intention to contest the will at this time. It read like someone backing out of a driveway with their blinkers still on. By Friday, the shape of town attention had changed. Donors called, not the shiny kind, the kind with anonymous and a check memo that says, "For the kid who works nights." A retired machinist dropped off a savings bond from 1998 with an apology that it probably isn't worth much. A woman I didn't recognize left a quilt at my door with squares cut from her husband's work shirts and a note for the scholarship office couch when kids need to cry sitting down. I unfolded it and cried standing up. There were consequences moving on other tracks too, ones I didn't have to steer. The Bar Association emailed Ruth to request copies of filings and exhibits for preliminary review of professional conduct. The local station ran a short-piece attorney for local woman under scrutiny for claims in probate. They blurred Vanessa's face in B-roll, even though she'd begged for cameras last week. TV has its own way of understanding when a story shifts from messy to mean. And then there was the internet, no longer a fire, more like a pile of wet leaves that refused to catch. Priya kept comments off. Miss Carroll moderated the Facebook group like a kindly bouncer. People still posted theories. The town replied with links, timestamps, and just enough patience not to grow a new monster. We started reading applications the next Monday. I spread them across my dining table, which has seen more school projects than casseroles, and felt my chest lift for the first time in weeks. One kid's essay smelled like diesel and paper. He typed it during breaks at the feed store. Another wrote about scrubbing grease off his hands in the school bathroom before the SAT because he'd fixed a neighbor's mower for gas money. A girl from the next county described watching YouTube videos on coding because her internet cut out after midnight and the library closes at 8. We built a rubric that felt like it belonged here. Work ethic, community care, financial needs spark. We kept a sticky note column labeled Outcry for the essays that didn't fit the checkboxes, but grabbed our shirts anyway. I made coffee in the old percolator that sounds like it's thinking hard, and Pastor Jim came by with a stack of church stationery to use as scrap. By noon, my house sounded like Hope wearing work boots. Then came the letter, handwritten no return address mailed from 2 towns over, and folded to fit my mailbox like it was reluctant to arrive. I knew the handwriting before I finished the first line, Vanessa. Only one sentence. "You've taken everything. I have nowhere left to go." I set it on the counter and looked at it until the words blurred. The old me, the one who spent years handing out extra chances like suckers from a desk drawer, would have written back. The me who read Noah's letter and then stared at my roses until the wind calmed me down did something else. I slid the note into a plain envelope, wrote Ruth on the front, and tucked it behind the binder's last tab labeled Correspondence. Feelings go to gardens, paper goes to files. 2 days later, the mayor's office called. "We're setting up a senior financial safety council," the assistant said. "Workshops on estate planning, executor basics, spotting scams. Would you chair it?" I laughed soft, surprised. She mistook it for hesitation. "We can call someone else," she offered. "No," I said. "I'll do it, but I have opinions." "Good," she said. "We're fresh out." We started small Wednesday nights at the library's back room that smells like old paper and earnestness. 10 women, then 20, then more, slipping into chairs with notebooks and anxiety. We talked about beneficiary forms, about keeping logs when you're caregiving, about the sentence you can hand to a pushy relative. Put it in writing. We made a handout with 3 lines only. Who has a key? Who has a copy? Who can you call? People took extras for neighbors. Some nights were mostly tears. Other nights were mostly laughter, the kind you earn by comparing scars. One widow said, "I always thought asking for a copy was rude." I said, "So is pretending you didn't sign something." The room hummed with that relief you get when you realize the thing you feared has a name and a solution. Fall crept in by inches, first the evening air, then the maple by the post office, Then every porch pumpkin showing up at once, like the town had a group chat. The foundation's first 5 scholarships went out with simple certificates Priya designed on her laptop. We did photos on the courthouse steps. No speeches, just handshakes, and a bakery box of donuts left open on the ledge for whoever needed sugar courage. As for the other side, Vanessa I heard as much as anyone, which is to say, not much and enough. The Bar Review opened an inquiry into her lawyer. A state office sent a notice that someone had been soliciting donations for a program that didn't exist. The notice said cease immediately in a font that did not mess around. A local nonprofit posted a friendly reminder. We are not affiliated with any private individuals claiming to represent the Morrow Foundation. Even her usual chorus online got quiet the way people do when a light turns on, and nobody wants to be seen in the wrong room. I did not gloat. I did not send messages. I watered my roses, the red one I named Truth, and the ivory one I named Peace, and I learned what it feels like when your heart puts its tools away at the end of the day. There were apologies that showed up late and sideways. A woman from the funeral line approached me at the feed store, hands already up like surrender. I shared her post, she said. I shouldn't have. I'm sorry. Thank you for saying that, I told her. Next time, share the application link. She blinked, then laughed, then promised she would. That's what rebuilding looks like here, apologies converted into action like quarters into laundry. One afternoon, the high school counselor called. Could you come talk to our seniors? Not about grief, she said quickly, about paperwork. They need to see a grown woman say budget without flinching. I went. I stood in a classroom that still smelled like dry erase and anxiety and drew 3 big boxes on the whiteboard like Miss Carroll had on that diner napkin, secure gather tell. I told them the truth that grown-ups make messes, that paper is kinder than memory, that dignity lives in small sentences said calmly. A boy in the back with oil under his nails asked, "What if the person lying is your mom?" I didn't rehearse my answer. Then your truth might have to be a quiet kind for a while, I said. But quiet isn't weak. Quiet, documented, and patient wins a lot. He nodded like he was storing that for later. The court never did hold a big hearing. Didn't need to. A month after the City Hall morning, Judge Benton issued a final memorandum, will confirmed beneficiary designations, valid temporary order, dissolved into final distributions, any contrary claims deemed unsupported. There was a footnote about misrepresentations in public filings, and a referral I didn't ask to understand. Ruth read it to me on my porch while we drank tea in mugs so old the handles fit our hands the way habits do. Do we celebrate? She asked, not unkindly. We plant, I said. So we did. We put 2 more trellises up and added a pink climbing rose the nursery lady swore was hardy. I named that one Mercy, not because I felt saintly, but because mercy is a discipline. You practice it or you lose it. I looked at all 3 Truth, Peace, Mercy and thought how funny it is that the strongest things in my yard needed wire to lean on and someone to tie them gently until they learned where to climb. At night, the house settled the way old houses do, 3 clicks in the baseboard, a sigh in the vent, the fridge clearing its throat. I kept Noah's letter in the drawer where I could touch it without reading it and reread it without weeping. Sometimes I played 10 seconds of his video just to hear his "I planned for this" smile in his voice. Then I'd stop. Firsts belong to feelings, the rest belongs to routine. People still ask me in whispers like the noise might hear them. How did you not lose your mind? I tell them the small version and the real version. The small, I had good help. The real, I wrote things down. I asked for copies. I said, put it in writing until it felt like a prayer. Fallout happened. Rebuilding happened at the same time. That's the part nobody puts in movies. You don't wait for the dust to settle. You plant in it. You water the ugly ground and dare it to grow something decent. And if you're lucky and stubborn, you wake up one morning, step onto your porch, and realize the chime finally caught the right breeze. It's still off-key, but it's trying. Vanessa used to think power was attention. I was guilty of that once too. In smaller ways, talking louder, proving harder, auditioning for fairness, like a part I might not get. Now I know better. Power is paper, and people the paper that holds the people who do. It's Parker with a phone memo, Miguel with a stamp, Priya with a file, Daniel with dates, Miss Carol with a clipboard, Ruth with a sentence sharpened like a blade you keep sheathed until you need to cut a rope. And it's a mother who didn't leave. Tomorrow, I'm meeting with the first 5 scholarship kids to show them how to fill out a W-9 without swearing. Thursday, we're hosting a workshop called Keys, Copies, Calls. Saturday, if the weather holds, I'll take a spade to the back bed and move the rosemary that thinks it's a tree. The story's different now. Not because I want to fight, I didn't fight. I stood. Paper behind my words, people beside my chair, roses at my back, and my boy's voice reminding me there are 2 right things at the right time, proof and peace. We used both, and we're not done. Winter crept in the way it does in the Midwest, thin daylight like a skimpy blanket night air that bites the doorknob. 3 trellises stand in my front yard. Truth in deep red peace in ivory, and mercy in blush, dormant now canes bare, while the sap keeps working somewhere inside. I've learned the quietest-looking things are often doing the most important job reinforcing themselves. On the kitchen counter, the 2 binders labeled Morrow Estate Record and Foundation Launch Record sit square as bricks under a table. Noah's letter lives in the nice things drawer, the one I open with 2 fingers, like opening a prayer. I don't play the USB every night anymore. I hear his voice in the blanks of the day, scooping grounds, turning the deadbolt, teaching the ladies at the library to keep copies and call lists. We call those sessions Keys, Copies, Calls. The whiteboard in the back room of the library smells like old paper, and earnestness holds 3 questions. Who has a key? Who has a copy? If it goes bad, who do you call? An older woman pen, trembling like a needle, writes her daughter's name and the county attorney's number. When she looks up, she smiles, like a lock just turned inside her chest. A young widow working nights asks, "What if my people get mad that I'm asking for paperwork?" I tell her mad is a feeling, paper is a process. You're not asking for love. You're asking for a signature. The room laughs, not out of meanness, but relief. The scholarship kids drop by one. Evan, in an oil-spattered jacket, brings waffle cookies my mom baked, thank you. Lena shows me her acceptance to nursing school. Marcos hands me his very first business card, ink, still smelling new. They don't bow under the weight of gratitude. We sip diet soda in paper cups and talk bus passes, shift schedules, class loads. Legacy, if we're being honest, isn't a statue or a wall of names. It's a calendar written in durable ink. One noon, the principal calls. "Can you talk to the seniors?" Not about grief about paperwork. I go. I draw 3 big boxes on the whiteboard the way Miss Carol once drew them on a diner napkin. Secure, gather, tell. I say grown-ups wing it. Life uses tricks. Our way through is paper and patience. Dignity lives in short sentences, said calmly. A boy in the back with grease under his nails asks, "What if the person lying is my mom? I don't perform." It might take time, I say, and you may have to be quiet with paper for a while. But quiet with paper isn't weak. It wins more than you'd think. One afternoon, Ruth brings tea. She doesn't reread court orders, no need. The judge's final memo already settled everything. We sit on the porch and watch the neighbor's cat pretend to hunt birds while really stalking dry leaves. Ever think about leaving town? Ruth asks, half teasing. I did, I say. But I won't walk off now that this place finally learned to stand up straight. My phone buzzes. Priya has the next mentor list locked. Daniel texts a photo of a small hospital pin for compassionate service captioned, "Hung it in the break room so the right people see it." Miguel writes postmarking in the morning. Lines squared, That night, I opened the mailbox. Between a motor oil flyer and a pizza menu sits a postcard of the public greenhouse, the place I last saw Vanessa. 7 words on the back, familiar and not, "I'm leaving, don't worry." No signature, no address. I hold it a minute, let a mix of release and emptiness pass. I don't call Ruth. I don't file it in the binder. I slide it under the Mercy Rose pot. Not to hide it, to let the wind finish its last job. The apologies that arrive late I take in measured amounts. At the feed store, a stranger touches my elbow. I shared her post. I deleted it. I'm sorry. I nod at the community board. Scholarship apps due next week. She laughs, says she'll remind her niece. That's what repair looks like here, turning embarrassment into action, 1 coin at a time. The senior council the mayor asked me to chair grows each week. We print a plain white handout with 3 bold lines. 1, clear appointments, simple forms, but signed and stored. 2, care log states meds, who came, who didn't. 3, short script. Please put that in writing. A retired railman reads that sentence like creed. I tell him, say it 3 times in the mirror. When you need it, it'll come out like you practiced. I'm learning the right shape of forgiveness. Not bleaching the past, more like setting a stone at the edge of the yard to mark the line. Vanessa isn't a monster under the bed anymore. She's a reminder. Illusions snap when they hit records. Truth doesn't wait until we're ready. Sometimes people ask, do you ever feel sorry for her? I'm honest. Yes, but I keep compassion and boundaries side by side. They walk fine together. One evening, Parker Knox, same spiky hair, now wearing a name badge that says AV Auditorium like a little captain. Can I use that audio clip to teach the kids about recording ethics? He asks, voice shaking on the big words. I grin. Ask, explain, give context. And remember, recordings aren't for bullying. They're for remembering right. He nods. Before he leaves, he pulls a new cable from his pocket. In case a wire goes loose, he says, I take it and feel that odd softness again, the same weight as the first time I held the 402 key. Round 2 of scholarships opens. We tweak the score sheet, add a column for do-over points for people who fell, and can prove how they got back up. I read apps late into the night, red and blue pens everywhere, like a mechanic's shop for words. The recommendation letters are crooked and exact. She works hard, says it does. It pays what she owes. Turns out, plain English is the highest praise. Some nights I step onto the porch lock, the door kill the lights, and let my eyes adjust. The quiet now isn't the quiet from the first days, not the kind born of exhaustion. It's the quiet of order restored. The fridge still coughs, the chime still drifts off key, but they've found a shared rhythm. I touch the doorframe and remember what I said at City Hall. Legacy isn't a costume. Now I'd add, legacy is a seam line, no one else can change it, but you can bind it so it doesn't fray. On a Saturday morning, we photograph 5 more scholarship recipients on the courthouse steps. No speeches, no ribbon cutting, just clean shoes, firm handshakes, and an open donut box so anyone can take one without asking. Priya records each name like a librarian. Ruth smiles just off camera. Miss Carol straightens collars like it's concert night. I look at the courthouse trellises, vines wrapping in order, not choking, and think there it is with structure. Nature gets a place to be beautiful. A few weeks later, I get a stack of handwritten letters, not asking, telling. Women from this town, the parish 2 counties over, I thought I was weak. Turns out, I just didn't have a form. I deleted the number of the person who always needed a favor, and I don't feel guilty anymore. I made a new med chart for Mom, added a signature column, whoever helps signs. Less fighting. I answer them all. Some replies are 1 line, good job. Some run 2 pages with a sentence from my mother tucked in the middle. We don't bluff, we document. People ask, after all this, what did you learn? I have 2 answers, 1 short, 1 long. The short records save people. The long dignity is a habit. Say short sentences, do the right thing, wait long enough. And when you must fight, fight politely, the right room, the right paper, the right hour. One night, the season's first snow falls like flour. I pull on a knit cap, grab a flashlight, and check the roses. I brush snow from the crowns and look at the ties I knotted in the fall. Truth stands straight by its steel stake. Peace leans around the porch like an unshowy embrace. Mercy is slender and stubborn. I think of Noah, his mom, don't worry. I planned for this smile and know his legacy isn't in today's signatures or tomorrow's headline. It's in the people who understand without a microphone. Back inside, I shake the snow off the mat. Before I switch off the kitchen light, I open the drawer and touch the blue ink letter. I don't reread it. I touch it to remember the two right things that can walk together, evidence and calm. Tomorrow morning, we'll run another Keys Copies calls. In the afternoon, 3 kids will bring me essays to read aloud. That evening, if the wind behaves, I'll pull the tarp back and lay fresh mulch around the roses. No trumpets, no victory lap. Just the small motions that shimma life back to straight. Vanessa once thought power was how many people would listen to her talk. I believe power is how many people do the right thing without needing to be told. In this town, that number is rising. I don't know if the papers will call that a win. I just know that whenever the wind finally hits the chime just right, it rings true for one clear beat. And that's enough. Finally, if any girl or any mother finds this at midnight in a messy kitchen because life dumped everything out, here's the last line I want to hand you. You are not alone. Write it down. Keep a copy. Ask for the signature. Say the short sentence. And stand politely until the truth stands with you. When it does, you'll hear what I hear tonight, the house breathing easy, and you too.